Howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of Stanley and the Sea Can. Alrighty, what do we got today? Some of the questions we've been getting, it has to do with, we got this fancy VR-66 3-gun, and why is that any better than my good old trusty Remington 1100, and what possible advantages, and blah, 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 all that kind of good stuff. So I thought I would show you some of the highlights. I can't get into everything because it's a totally different beast than a Remington 1100, but it's much closer to a Benelli M2, the original version that was made by or imported by Beretta, I believe. So what we got here is your standard semi-auto 12-gauge shotgun, right? So you've got the charging handle. If you wanted to release the bolt, you'd have to push this little button under here, which is fine. We've got ourselves a looks like a chrome lined or stainless steel bolt on there, a little bit of fancy decorations. And this bolt here appears to be like a pivoting bolt. So as the carrier moves forward and the bolt does its final lock up, yeah, you can see right here, there's a nice little hook that's kind of jumping up and grabbing inside the upper receiver to support it. So it's a nice, simple design. However, you want to load this bad boy, you can't just ram shells in there. So it's got a nice tubular magazine in here. You'd have to push this button, and then you got to get your finger in there, and the follower is way down. Kind of, let's see if we can see. It's almost flush with this front lip of the feeding port here. So in order to get a shell in there, these are dummies. As you can see, there's no primer, but they're weighted dummies. So I'm going to have to put this thing in here, slide it forward, and I got to keep going until I hear the click. So I'm still not there yet. And now the shell is not caught in the mag tube properly, and it's catching on this. So in order to get it in, I got to keep going. Now it's in there, and this one wasn't too bad. Sometimes they bite your finger, which sucks. So I guess I bet a little bit of a taller piece here. So, yeah, that's kind of how it is. It's hard to do that in a fast way. So you got to get your finger way deep in there, and then that follower is going to come up in order to get it locked in. So let's just clear this guy out. There we go. Prove him safe. So where the VR-66 comes in and how it's different than this is, well, we've got ourselves a rotating bolt now. So that's a similar mechanism to what we're used to. You can see as we move this, the carrier back and forth, the bolt comes here and rotates up to lock. So that makes life nice and easy there. Similar to the Remington 1100, we've got a chrome-lined carrier, and we've got a nice chrome bolt here. This bolt is lightened, so we've got some cuts out of there to make it lighter, and some little end mill cuts, kind of for decoration here, and kind of just for reduced weight a little bit. So that's going to change how the firearm feels and the speed of recoil and whatnot. This is an inertia-style firearm. So behind the bolt in this carrier here, there's a big monster spring hidden in here, so that when you actually fire the firearm, the bolt is free to move back and forth a little bit. And so it's going to, right now it's just tapping up against that really big spring, but it's actually going to compress that spring, and it's going to compress it hard enough that it stores energy in that spring. And then once the energy from shooting is over, the spring bounces back with enough force to cause it to cycle, and using inertia only. There's no gas or anything else. Remington 1100 is a gas gun, so underneath these handguard right about here, you've got some gas ports and stuff on the inside, which can get plugged up with dirt, crud, wads, unburned powder, shot, or whatever, if you're making your own shells, a little bit rich, and it can cause reliability issues for semi-auto functioning, whereas an inertia system is much more robust for that. You can't really, it can get dirty back in here from throwing out empty shells, but nowhere near the same level as the gas ports and the gas block up there. Now, when we come to the feeding port area here, we've done like a big cutout with lots of complex extra geometries. Like you can see, maybe you can see, there's like one chamfer here, and then it changes there, and then the inside has a radius around there. Then this here is a different angle again, and it's all blended. And there's another blend cut in there. So what that allows me to do is it pushes the follower, effectively pushes the follower back, or it looks like it has. And then when I put a shell in there, this is for maintenance purposes only, of course. If you push it in, you'll hear that click right there. And I don't have to have my finger in there so far. I can actually get away with just having it there, and that's fully in. And even then I can go a little bit deeper and push that shell into the mag tube without having to worry about getting my finger way deep inside and everything else. So this is specifically designed so you can wear gloves. You can wear, there's a video somewhere else of me on the internet loading one of these firearms with wearing cooking mitts or oven mitts. So they're just showing you how ridiculous of gloves you can be wearing and still load shells properly with this. I'll put another one in just for the next little thing I wanted to show you. But yeah, so you can do quad loads on here pretty easily, or double ups, whatever you need to do, because you can just kind of come down across the top and load her up. Now, some firearms, if you wanted to, range is called safe or whatnot, you got to get all your shells out of the tubular magazine. If you, hit this, not that one, hit that. So omit when I push that. Hit this guy here. Now we got a shell on the lifter. So when we rack it, it wants to go, right? And then you pull it out. That's out the empty shell. Fantastic. But I'd have to then, in order to unload this firearm, run every shell, which would theoretically be a live shell, through the action of the firearm, which is less than ideal. Instead of having to do that with this firearm, we can load up a couple shells again. And then we can hold with one finger, push this this follower or this lifter up, and then go underneath the front of this and pull it up. And we've got a two-piece shell catch on the inside here, which allows you to pull this up, and all the shells will just come squirting right out the back. And just like that, there's our two shells out. You can see our follower there. So we were able to unload our tubular magazine without loading a single shell in the chamber. There. Everything else on here is kind of straightforward, what you'd expect. We got oversized everything, charging handle, tube catch there, shell catch. We put a little Picatinny rail on here with a little dovetail cut on the top, so you can, you've got your ghost rings front and back. You can take these off if you don't want them, and then you can just put like an EOTech or something up there. That's kind of how I like to run. And yeah, you may also notice that this is chambered in 3.5 inch, which is interesting because, how do those magazine capacity laws work in this country again? Something along the lines of however many shells, you're allowed to have 5 shells in the magazine based on the size of the chamber. So I guess that means we could probably put a whole whack at 12 gauge 2 3/4 shells in there and still be shorter than 5 rounds of 3.5 inch. So that's why when these guns ship, they come with extended mag tubes. So right now this tube is set up so it'll hold, I believe, 3 shells of 3/4. But if you were to put a mag extension on here so that you could run the 3.5 inch shells in the chamber, yeah, you'd be able to hold several more of 2 3/4 inch shells, your standard shells here. Now, the operation system really doesn't like doing anything bigger than 3 shells, but the chamber is indeed a 3.5 inch chamber. So therefore, this is a 3.5 inch chambered firearm. So that would possibly affect your magazine capacity. So once again, you're allowed 5 rounds of the 3.5 inch, but 5 rounds doesn't necessarily mean 5 rounds. It means you can't put 6. So you could have 5.9 rounds long in this tube, which would then hold even more of these 2 3/4 inch shells through there. So that's an interesting little promo freebie trick that we got for this firearm. And as well, you're also able to ghost load it. And yeah, so you can have a whack of shells in the chamber, a whack in the tube, and 1 on the lifter ready to go. So you can end up with something like 9 or 10 shells in there if you were to need that. And I guess if you're going to run the really short shells, the 1 3/4 shells, you'd be able to get even more in the magazine. The chamber, 3.5 inch chamber, is totally appropriate to shoot anything smaller. So you can shoot the 3.5, 3, 2 3/4, 2.5 if you can find some really old stuff. And of course, those new modern 1 3/4 inch shorty shells. However, the cycling of it would not appreciate running a really short shell with its current configuration. We need a little spacer in there. And if you did that, you should probably be able to have, I don't know, certainly more than 5. And it would still be less than, more than 5 of the little rounds, the shorties, and it'd still be less than 5 rounds of the 3.5 inch. So that's just a quick little overrun of how this firearm works and what's special about it. Essentially a Benelli M2 inertia system. Yes, it's made in Turkey, but we do a bunch of stuff to them here to make it have a lot of these features We change out some of the geometries in the barrel area. We smooth a bunch of stuff out, so they are not just your standard off-the-shelf turkey firearm. They've been modified here in Canada, and they are pretty sick. Anyway, thanks so much. Just like Grandma used to say, kids, you're every bit as sharp as a marble today.